tonight, look at something that's related to a lot of things that we already done, troubleshooting the Windows startup problems. We talked a little bit about startup problems, I think, in the first half, in the 801 portion of the course. And some of the stuff that's here was covered last time in the last chapter, so this one shouldn't be, hopefully, as long. Learn about the boot process from the time you press the power button until the Windows desktop loads. In DOS, we went through the power on self-test, and in 801, we went through the power on self-test and those kinds of things. That's the sort of thing that we're talking about here. Windows Tools can help you when solving Windows startup problems. There are a number of tools, and there are a number of tools available. And Keith proved that some of them work because it did fix itself, and we'll look at some of those tools. There's some memory checks, some rewriting the master boot record and the DOS boot record, those sorts of things. That if you have boot problems, what can we do to solve those problems? Now to troubleshoot Windows startup problems. So the first thing here is choose between a hard boot and a soft boot. A hard boot, a cold boot, is when we turn the power switch on. It takes more time than a soft boot, initializes the processor and clears memory. The soft boot, Control Alt Delete Restart or restart the system, saves time in the soft boot. If it doesn't work, use the hard boot. We've actually had instances here with this memory issue that a machine wouldn't cold boot, but it would warm boot or soft boot. Because notice what's missing in the soft boot is they initialize the processor and clears the memory. And we're pretty well convinced, and this was a long time ago, pretty much convinced it was a memory because we had just added memory to the machine when it started having those kinds of issues with it. The startup BIOS, term that familiar with from the last time, the BIOS, basic input-output system, responsible for getting the system started up. It's got the basic structure in order to tell the system where to go to find the operating system. And what are we looking for when it goes through the BIOS through the post? What are we listening for? One beep. One beep is good, more is not good. And that, okay, successful boot depends on the hardware, the BIOS, and the operating system performing without errors. Successful boot, successfully starting the machine, goes through the whole process. So the setup BIOS reads the motherboard settings and runs the post. Been there, done that. Take it apart, put it together, listen for the beep. This is what it's doing. Might be run. If a key is pressed to request it, searches for bootable devices. And if it doesn't find any, it's going to tell you no. One of the other multiple things that it does when it says reads the motherboard settings and runs a post, it also caches those settings. So it doesn't really go through and read these things, have all of the devices report every time, even though we say that they do. If you change devices, you may have to re-enumerate the motherboard, I think is the proper term. Each of the BIOSes will have different wordings on how to do that. What that's basically saying is go out and really find what's on the motherboard. Don't believe the cache when we do these things. This is a system setup. This is a basic BIOS. Each of them is going to be different. I think we looked at these machines here. These machines have a relative, if we didn't, we will have a relatively extensive BIOS. The virtual machines you can go into and they have a real basic BIOS. You can change those. You can change the boot order, a couple of basic things in it, but not anything dramatic. BIOS can control a number of things that we do. Steps to start these things, just the components and the files necessary to start Windows 7 Vista. Windows 7 and Vista really do operate very much the same way. The master boot record is the first sector of the hard drive, the very first sector of the hard drive. So that would be, sectors are numbered starting with 0. So it would be ring 0, sector 0. It's at the very, very, very end of that. The boot record is the first sector of the system partition, probably the C drive. XP uses this sector. Windows 7 and Vista don't use it. The master boot record contains the partition table. What are the partitions? What are the active partitions? Remember, we can make, in the basic disks, we can make 4 partitions, and you need to mark one of them as active. The active partition is the one that it uses to boot the system with. This is another list of what's going on: Boot Manager, BCD, WinLoad, XE, all things that we're going to see. And you're going to see some of these things when you look at the processes that are running. The lsas.exe, what the heck is that? The authenticates users, that's the security. So you'll see some of these things when you look at the task manager. The HAL DLL, the dynamic link library, the hardware abstraction layer, hardware specific drivers. That's the thing that prevents you from taking a hard drive from one Windows machine and putting it in another Windows machine, unless they're the same chipset. You create an image, you don't rebuild the HAL, but we do those things. So this is the great flow chart here, right? BIOS checks essential hardware for post. What if it doesn't have any memory? What do you get? Or the memory's bad, it just keeps beeping. Did an error occur, yes or no? If it's no, checks the CMOS for the OS, launches the master boot record. The boot manager, the BCD. BCD is a file that has some startup information in it. Then we'll look at normal startup, dual boot. User presses the space bar. If you press the space bar, you're going to get into the boot manager, and that really is only significant if you got more than one operating system. If it's a dual boot, it'll give you the option. If you don't press the space bar, it's going to give you the option anyway, or it's supposed to give you the option anyway when you do those things. Normal startup, the Windows bootloader loads the OS, the HAL, this process, and I think this is in the book also. Did an error occur? If it's yes, is the video active? No or yes? If yes, displays the error message. If no, it's going to send us the beep codes. And that's the reason that there are beep codes is what if you can't see anything? If there is no display, you need an audible indicator. I think one of the issues there becomes a lot of machines come now without speakers. So you may or may not actually hear those things. Or we could have the one like was over there and they could talk to you in Mandarin Chinese and everybody understood that, right? There were codes, and you can set it so that it'll speak to you in English. Wasn't anything really very exciting. There may be a problem. The kernel, what was the kernel? Not the Army commander, but what's the kernel?
It's the core.
It's the core of the operating system, right? So the core, the OS kernel activates the HAL, reads more of the registry, builds into memory the registry key, HKLM hardware. Where is the hardware? Starts the critical services, starts the session manager, and on down the list that you can read. There's a lot of things goes on in the Windows Start. You ever wonder why it takes so long? Just take a look at everything that has to happen as it goes through those things. Solve startup problems. The advanced boot options, the Windows recovery environment, the command prompt for Windows in the Windows recovery environment are all things that we can do. The advanced Windows menu, the F8, gives us the option to go into safe mode command prompt, those kinds of things. Active Directory restore mode if you're on a server. Press the F8, repair your own computer, only available on Windows 7. Launches the Windows 7 recovery environment. That is, launches the Windows recovery environment. We've got two things: the PE environment, pre-execution environment. You can boot to copy an image onto a blank hard drive. The recovery environment, the RE, is designed to help you repair Windows. Safe mode, minimum configuration. If you think you're having driver problems, safe mode is the place to go to try to figure that out. If it works in safe mode and doesn't work in regular mode, then we've got to go figure out what either the hardware is or the driver issue is. No network access, that's not entirely true because you'll have the option in the F8 menu, safe mode or safe mode with networking. So you can get networking with it. Use a plain video driver, and video is usually the big offender of all of these things. Safe mode appears in the four corners of the screen, says you're in safe mode, 800 by 600 screen resolution, and the background is black. The other time you will get a black background is not good is when you have an invalid copy of Windows. If they decide that it's not a legitimate copy, an authentic copy, and the background turns black, you're going to have to figure out what's happening with your license key. That's the background. It won't say safe mode, but it'll just be black, and a lot of stuff. Some stuff will work, some stuff won't work, and it'll probably be really slow. If that happens to you, and it's like we're using it for the free amount of time, 30 days, 60 days, you can renew these things for up to 180 days at the command prompt SLMGR, that's the license manager, space dash rearm. The switch is rearm, and then it'll be good for another 30 days. So rearm. But you can do that up to 180 days. After that, you got to buy the license.
What about schools? Have y'all bought the license?
We do have a license, but we're not licensing them because because these classes don't last over 5 weeks, 35 days.
But that don't mean the license will start.
We can do it for up to 180 days.
So you can pause it?
You can rearm it, renew it so that you can use Windows 7. You can't do that with Windows 8. You can use Windows 7 for up to 180 days without buying it. But after 180 days, it goes away. It quits working. And if you look at if you right-click on computer and do options, it'll tell you how long it's good for. X number of days until you have to activate Windows. You can renew it for up to that amount of time. What is safe mode? Safe mode is troubleshooting mode version location for Windows. Minimal driver set so that we don't have a lot of things going on. The advanced boot options, the F8 key, recovering the system using safe mode. System restore, if we want to go back in time, again, that's a registry setting. Scan the system for viruses. Memory diagnostics can be handy if you suspect a memory problem. Check disk if you suspect a disk problem. What check disk does is compares the directory with what's actually on the disk to try to find errors there. It's we've gone through check disk and scan disk are the two terms that you'll hear in these things off and on. Device manager, uninstall or disable a device with problems or roll back a driver. Driver rollback, if you put a driver on and all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore, you can roll it back. The example usually when you do that is going to be video. And the problem with rolling back a video driver is when you put it in and it doesn't work, you're normally going to wind up with a blank screen so you can't see what you're doing in order to roll it back. That's where the last known good configuration can come in handy so that you can restart the system. You could always go into safe mode and roll it back, but it's a lot quicker administratively to start it in last known good configuration, which will automatically roll it back for you. MS config, I think we've already looked at that one. What's in the startup where you can disable things in that one. Programs and features to uninstall software. One of the things that you may want to consider for uninstalling software is a piece of free software called Revo, R-E-V-O uninstaller. What it does is uninstalls the program and goes up and cleans all the leftovers. Windows is not real great at cleaning up after itself. REVO uninstaller. It also has a portable version if you want to put it on a flash drive. A lot of these things have portable versions. Portable apps, there's a ton of stuff there if you'll go look at there. Event Viewer to find information about previously failed startups, what's been going on with the system, has it had issues. What I like about these things, it says that it won't start up, but let's go look at Event Viewer. Yes?
Just out of curiosity, so if you were to run Revo and uninstaller, like say you had like a free trial of something.
No, it won't. You want to reuse it? No.
I didn't think it would. I was just curious.
Safe mode, the advanced boot options, first try safe mode with networking, next try safe mode. See, they even contradict themselves because now we are saying that we have it, safe mode with command prompt. And a few occasions we've had the issue that we actually had to go to the command prompt in order to do things. That's a very minimal running there. Won't load if the core Windows components are corrupted, then we're going to have to go try to repair the Windows files. What that's saying is if the Windows files are corrupted, it's not going to load, which makes sense. Safe mode is for minimizing the drivers. What we're really doing here is testing to see if we have a driver problem or if we have a hardware problem. When loading Windows in safe modes, use the loader recorded in the NT. This is a great name, isn't it? ntbtlog.txt. What that says is, and it's not just in safe mode. This thing is there. What it does is records everything that loads and tells you whether it's good or bad. And what is kind of surprising, you go back and look at these logs, you have errors some sort of error on almost every startup in Windows.
Why is that?
A lot of it is just time. It's multiple things trying to do something at the same time. Windows Server 2003, almost every time you start it up, it says a service failed to start. What that means is a service failed to start at that time, at that moment, but they can always start later. The same thing here, failure, and then it'll try again. Windows will keep trying until it actually gets the stuff loaded, or you'll normally get an error message with them. Safe mode with networking, booting, and network access. It's also used when the Windows installation files are available on the network so that we can get to them on the network with that way. SFC, System File Check, Scan Now, verifies the system files, check disk /R, and the R is for repair, command to check for file system errors. And if you run check disk, look at the switches. There's some switches that say, yep, go check the files. And then it goes in and checks the files, takes 15 or 20 minutes and says, yep, you got some bad files. If you do R, it'll check them and fix them at the same time. So be careful of some of the switches that are available in these things. System File Checker checks Scan Now will check the system files, and if it finds corrupted ones, it's supposed to repair the corrupted files. System Restore, go back to a point in time, restore system files and settings so that we can get back to someplace. To me, this is kind of it's a safety net. It's something that you don't have to run restore points, but it's a good thing to do. I've had to use it a couple of times to get back to things. I was doing some virtual machines on a laptop a couple of years ago and was using the wireless NIC and the wired NIC so that I could do routing on the virtual machine. And when it restarted, all of a sudden, I could get an IP address on any of the NICs. I couldn't change any of the NICs. I couldn't modify anything. I couldn't take them out. I couldn't delete them. I couldn't do anything because it said I didn't have the authority. Well, I was the administrator. I didn't know what more authority I could get. But I went into Finally dawned on me, go into the restore point, set the restore point back before I started doing the virtual stuff, and it was fine. So those things and updates, major installs, things like that, Windows will create a restore point for you. Restore point is on the disk. It's there until it gets deleted and until you run out of space. You specify how much space you want for the restore points. You can go back for a significant amount of time if you want to, depending on how much space you allocate for it. You can also tell it no.
When you say significant amount of time,
depends on how much space you have and how many major changes you made. I think it makes weekly. It creates weekly restore points for you, whether you ask for them or not. So they're going to be there. This is what that NT log looks like. Loaded driver, da-da-da-da-da-da, and on down the line. It'll tell you driver by driver, location by location, what got loaded. If you watch these things start up, and you will watch them start up in safe mode, when you get to the one that just stops, that's probably going to be your bad driver. And sometimes you can just observe what goes on with those things. Advanced boot, low resolution, 640 by 480. When the video settings don't allow the screen to display clearly. XP is called enable VGA mode. They just keep changing what it is, but any of those things are going to have the minimal driver set, a low resolution driver. Last known good configuration, I've at least referred to. What happens when Windows starts is it goes through all of that boot process and loads Windows and all that other good stuff. When you actually get logged on, the registry creates, or the system creates in a registry, a clone set of the registry settings when you got logged on, and it's called last known good. So that if we make changes to it and we mess it up, the clone set's not affected. The last known good configuration loads that clone set so that you can get back to the previous boot. Now, once you boot for the second time, get a new clone set. And boot means get successfully logged on to the system. The system, you actually get there. Not it fails during startup. If it fails during startup, you can still go use the last known good. Directory Services Restore Mode is a domain controller function. What this does is allows you to restore from backup the Active Directory information. Debugging mode, system boot logs from failing computer to another computer for evaluation. You can log what's going on to a different machine in those things. Disable automatic restart on system failure. We talked about that. Stops a rebooting when it has a system failure, because if you get the blue screen of death, about the time you figure out where the error message is, it'll restart. If you disable that, you can read those error messages. It's going to stop and let you read the screen itself. The recovery environment from the launched from the advanced boot options menu provides a graphical and command line interfaces. So it says in here now, we're going to boot from the Windows 7 or Vista DVD and select the language preference in the Windows 7. Installed to the hard drive and available in the advanced boot options. Windows 7 system repair disk can be created and used to launch the recovery environment. What the recovery environment allows us to do, actually I want to go back to that because I got one set up here, I think. So we take a look at it. What I've done is start this machine with the Windows install media, the DVD, and got to the point that if you were installing, you would keep going from here, right? So let's see if we can just keep going from here. We get into this thing. We'll do next. And now the option is install now or repair your computer. If I repair my computer, First thing it's going to do is searching for Windows installations. First it's going to do is find the Windows installations. Once it does that, it's probably going to try to repair it, even though there shouldn't be anything wrong with this one. This takes a couple minutes for it to run around and run around. So we'll let it give its thing here. Okay, it's found our system, and we have an option to restore your computer using a system image that you created. If you created using the backup program, you can tell it right here, I just want to restore the whole thing. When you restore from the manufacturer's CD, that's what you're doing. You're restoring a system image. In this one, let's see if we can keep going here. We'll go next. We get into the options. The startup repair, fix my computer. We'll maybe turn that one on at last when we do that. System restore, setting up system restore, and then the next, just so that you see, and you ask about that, how many does it keep? This machine hadn't been running very long, but it has a system restore yesterday, 9/11 and 9/10, and these were both with Windows updates. So when Windows updates, it's going to create a restore point. So I could go back with these critical updates, go back and go back before that with the registry information. The next is system image recovery. Recover your computer using a system image you created, which we could have done earlier. So this is another one. When we do that, let's see if we can get into there. It's going to ask us, so Windows cannot find the system image for this computer. Yep, it's not there, so we're just going to say no. We would have to actually have one before we'd be able to do anything with that one. We could select one next. It didn't find anything. We can give it a location, but we have to have one of those things. Windows memory diagnostic, we can do this and I'm not going to pick it because when you pick the memory diagnostic, we'll do it last thing, it restarts the system and goes into a diagnostic test of the system during the restart. Can't check most things with Windows actually running. The one that might be one of the more useful ones, the command prompt. The problem with the command prompt, how do we get help in Windows? Usually we type help, right? In DOS, if we wanted to help, what did we type? Help. This one doesn't give us help. It's not recognized. Doesn't give us a command list. I put on the Moodle page how to troubleshoot Windows. It's a Tom's Hardware article. It's got a number of commands in here that you can use in order to rewrite the master boot record, rewrite the DOS boot record, those kinds of things. So there are commands that are available to do that. The functionality is there, and there is a command prompt. If we were going to do check disk, it should be there. We have the /F fixes errors, /V on the VFAT, /R locates bad sectors, and recovers readable information. Forces the volume to dismount, NTFS only, a number of switches there. When you do these things, it's always a good idea, I think, to look at the switches to see what they'll actually will or won't do for you. And this one you want to do the R. F fixes error on the disk. R locates the bad sectors and recovers the readable information. And you notice, you probably can't see it from there, R says implies F, so it's going to do what F does. It's going to fix everything, and it's also going to find the bad sectors on the disk. If you have to use this one, use the R function, use the R switch on it. So, let's see what the Windows memory diagnostic might do for us. So it's going to restart the machine. We knew that, right? Because it told us it would restart the machine. And we're not going to press the CD DVD. If we press the any key, right now it's going to go back to the Windows setup and we can get into the repair my computer. We won't stay here very long, but it's running test 1 or 2, 3%. It's going to take a while, obviously, to do this. 4%. It's going to go and check all the memory that's on the machine. Memory is one of the things that really can cause us issues. I'm going to go back to the so as a quick look at the recovery environment, and here it is. Now they're going to go through, do you want to do a system restore? These slides basically what we just did. Windows Memory Diagnostic will go through and check all that, use if memory is suspected to be a problem. System restore, sometimes fix a problem with a corrupted device driver because it's going to go back to some point in time, maybe a different location, new location. If you've upgraded, have those kinds of issues, go back in time. The command prompt, run check disk, restore corrupted registry. You have to go find the commands in order to do this. You can rewrite the master boot record, rewrite the DOS boot record if it's not booting. That sometimes will help you. The image recovery, last resort, erases everything. Depends on when you made the image, it erases everything and puts back that image. Just like if you have an image restore or restore disk from one of the manufacturers. Erases, the first thing it does is wipes everything out on the disk and then it puts the image back on. If you've got the one from the manufacturers, it's going to do that, and you're now going to have the machine like it was when you walked out the door with it. Vista PC Complete Restore. So, restore options instead of the Windows 7 option of System Image Restore. This is a little bit different in some of these areas. And we really hope that you don't see a whole lot of Vista. And I don't think you will. There was one that generally got skipped. Probably got skipped by you too, didn't it? Command prompt, graphical tools, full read and write access to all the files. It is something that has less graphics, obviously, less restrictions on it, but it's a command prompt. Repair the hard drive, check disk. Disk part is a disk partitioning at the command line. Where we use the disk management tool, right click, create a partition. Disk part allows you to list, create. Will was asking about the read-only part. When you asked about read-only the other day, or locked or whatever, disk part's the utility that you would use to fix that. And there are procedures. I don't have them in the top of my head, but there are procedures that you use disk part in order to do that. Some of the commands that are available, it has help screens just like everything else. And if you type a command and don't give it enough, it'll tell you you didn't do this or you didn't do that. But it's fairly user-friendly. Enable networking, WPE, INIT command to enable networking. This is enable networking at the command prompt. Boot safe mode command prompt so that we can do that. Boot rec command to repair the BCD. BCD is the file that has the startup information in it. This is new in Vista, actually, in Vista Windows 7. BCD edit is the command. We used to just use a text editor to do that. Now you have to use the tool. Boot sec command to repair a dual boot system, if you have that to do. Again, tables. These tables, and I think you don't keep these books, these commands are something that you probably want to have copies of back for when you run across, yeah, I got to do this. Start making yourself tools and records of things that you can use when you're starting to troubleshoot things, when you're starting to repair things. Tool set is a great thing to take with you, to create and take with you. Manage files, nothing, I don't think magic here. The commands to restore the registry, and again, more commands out of tables in the book. how we're going to, with a registry backup, restore the registry if you have an issue with it. And one of the things that we talked about earlier, when you start fooling with the registry, make a backup of it before you make changes to it, because if you make a mistake, you can really wipe it out. But if you make a mistake and you have a backup, you haven't really wiped it out. You can restore that backup. Stage 1, it says you determine where the boot process of failure occurs, before the progress bar, after the progress bar, after log on. What's going on with the system, the different stages of this. Before, problem might be with hardware startup files. Nothing really magic about that. A blank screen, there's nothing on the screen. These are one, monitor LED lit, monitor LED is not lit. Reboot, check the monitor power. Is it turned on? Is it plugged in? Different things that may or may not happen. Video card, when we play with that video card, if you put the secondary video card in, the video card in, your onboard video then gets disabled. And that's pretty standard in most of those things, that you need the video from the other system. Trade a monitor in for a good monitor. Swap stuff out. Power problem, things that talked about in the hardware portion, and this is really hardware, so we'll go through it. Mostly just click through. Error message appear, BIOS. Error messages either on the screen or through the beep codes. Do we have those things? Hardware monitor, if there's a problem, error message. This error message post indicates a hardware problem. A discrete error occurred. Yeah, I guess that would be a hardware problem, huh? Control-Alt-Delete to restart, so we can get the same error again. You can start up BIOS, access the hard drive, possible messages, hard drive not found, fixed disk error, those different things. Is it there? Is it plugged in? Does it got power? Is it turned on? Does the system recognize the hard drive? And if it does, is there anything on there? No boot device available, might not be the hard drive. No boot device available may be back to one of those. We may have a corrupted DOS boot record or master boot record, and you can repair those with the installation media. That's one of the things you probably want to try first before you rip the hard drive out and reinstall everything. BIOS found the hard drive, couldn't read it, drive not recognized, invalid boot disk, different things. Back to the troubleshooting tools. Rewrite the master boot record, rewrite the DOS boot record. You can do that really without doing a whole lot of risk. Even though I think I'll probably give you a message. So it always gives you the message that, do you want to do this? Yes. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes. Are you absolutely positively sure you want to do this? Yes, I said yes twice now. So go ahead. The boot sequence, use the BIOS to set the boot sequence, the setup utility, and get into each of these. The boot sequence, what are we going to boot from? Hard drive, or we're going to look at the DVD first, the hard drive first, floppy if you have a floppy there. You may want to consider, once you have everything installed, just to make booting a little faster, and if you have a disk failure, you're going to have to go back and reset it. Set the hard drive to be the first device so it doesn't have to go through a sequence to this, nothing there, this, DVD, nothing there, USB, nothing there, floppy, nothing there. If you set the hard drive first, boots from the hard drive. Yes, it's there, and it'll go ahead and start it. And it's not going to be a whole lot, but it's going to be a little bit faster. Set the boot order here. And again, each of those things, each of the BIOSes are going to be different. You just kind of have to read how to get into it and what it wants you to do with them. Boot from so set up DVD, successful boot from a flash drive. If able to boot, Windows Logon screen appears, problems isolated to the hard drive. Can we boot from other devices? Is it a hard drive problem? Could be, easily be a hard drive problem. The Windows RE, can it find a Windows installation? That's the one we were looking at, and it did find a Windows installation on mine. Windows 7 will sometimes repair itself. As again proven by Keith, it did actually work. And I guess it's just me. I've not really had personally a whole lot of luck with it, but It's designed to do as much repair. Maybe my errors have been a lot more serious. Maybe I really messed it up. But run system repair. Can find the Windows installation, run the system repair, the system restore, start the system, and launch the advanced boot options, no boot menu, probably corrupted boot sector, what's there, what's not there. What can we do, what can't we do? There are tools. The recovery environment does have a number of tools. A lot of it's going to be automatic. Don't be afraid to do that. Check disk, I've seen the check disk really save a couple of machines in the past. That wouldn't start, run the check disk, and all of a sudden everything comes back. Because all it takes is one file to be messed up early in the sequence, and it can't go anywhere. It's just going to quit. Find the Windows installation still here. Windows Boot Manager, insert your Windows installation disk. I never like to see messages like this. Don't know about you, but when it says, put it in and we'll fix it for you, then it's, oh golly, I really hope you'll fix it for me. More can we find the Windows? The reason I'm going through this, you can read these things, you can comment on them, you can read these things. Option 1, complete the PC backup, restore it. How are we going to get this back? Recover from a corrupted Windows installation. What are the real options to recover from a corrupted Windows installation? If you can't find the corrupted files and fix them, then basically we can restore it or reinstall it. This is where backups or system images come in to play, and you can do a restore from the boot, the DVD boot, as long as you can get to that backup, you can restore it. To reinstall Windows, so you didn't know how to do reinstall Windows, right? Boot from it. If you suspect a hard drive might be failing, reformat it. If you suspect a healthy hard drive, run check disk, install the applications, create all the user accounts, delete the windows.o file. The windows.o file, hopefully as you saw from the migration, keeps all of the files from the previous installation. Once you have everything or convinced you have everything, go ahead and delete it, because it's going to take quite a bit of disk space. It really will take quite a bit of disk space when we do those things. Kernel successfully, log on screen, not display, probably corrupted, fixed by isolating. Advanced boot menu, and we're back to check disk. Check disk C colon. What we're doing here is checking the C drive. That's not part of the switch. That's the drive that we're going to check, and that's typically going to be the one that you have. System information msinfo32.exe reads basically the registry. It tells you what is installed on the system itself. SFC, the system file check. The scan now checks the system files for corruption, and then we have the boot log file that we can use. Last known good configuration we've talked about. Run the startup repair, may work. Enable boot logging to find out what is working and what isn't working. Restore point, lots of different things that we can use in order to try to repair the system. Booting into safe mode. If you can boot into safe mode, if not in regular mode, think driver. Check disk. If you have a real problem with the system, try the check disk repair option before you give up on things too quickly. Reboot, replace the program, disable the service or drive, and by changing the start value to 0x. This means the X means it's going to be a hexadecimal, so it's a hexadecimal 4 here. And that the 4 just says don't load that one. Disable programs, disk read errors, more tables that are in the book. Master boot record damaged. Lots of different things. Recover lost data. Third-party softwares, and there are a number of them, and they're not really, if you look at them compared to what you're about to lose, they're not really that expensive. We're talking probably probably now $40 to $50. The last time I bought one, I think it was $35 to recover NTFS. Now, you had to buy software for each operating system that you wanted to recover. The thing that they did do, and this was get data back, what they did allow you to do is you could get a demo version of it, and you could run the software to see if there were any files to recover, but you couldn't copy the files. But you could leave it right where it is because it takes quite a bit of time. These things read the disk surface. You could leave it there, go buy the license key, put the license in, and then all of a sudden you can copy all the files that you are now recovering. So there are third-party softwares that are not outrageously expensive that allow you to do that. Commercial recovery services are going to cost you quite a bit of money. Depends on how important the data is. Deleted or corrupted data files, recovery bin, all of those sorts of things. These get data back programs will do that. There's a couple of open source that you can look at also when you do these things. Recovering lost data, remove the hard drive. What I had to do, and this is just what I had to do at the time, it was an IDE drive. It had to be directly the IDE drive that I was trying to recover from, or the drive I was trying to recover from, had to be on an IDE controller and physically attached to the computer. The one that I was sending the data to after it had gone through, and it took about 20 hours actually to go through a 200 gig hard drive. I could copy it to a drive that was attached with a USB cable. But the detection had to be done with a controller that was directly on the motherboard. Data recovery services, if your data is really important, if you're about to lose something that's really, really important, you can do that. And I think that you're going to find that those guys are relatively expensive. So Windows, lots of tools here, and I get the sense, and that's why I started going through, that we're starting to get into some repetition on these things. But look at tools, start building yourself a tool set that you can use for Windows, and then when you get into Linux, build yourself a tool set you can use for Linux. A lot of tools are Linux related. There is and I don't know, do we talk about it? Probably not in here. There is a piece of software called Yumi or Yummy, Y-U-M-I, that you can create bootable, and there are other ones. I just like this one because it's easy. Bootable flash drives, and you can take some of these tools that require booting and put them on it. You can have multiples. Depending on how big your flash drive is, you can have multiple tool disks on a single flash drive. So you could, instead of carrying around a whole bunch of CDs or DVDs in order to boot to these machines, you can make it on a single flash drive and just pick whichever tool set that you want at the time. But do those things as you do that. Advanced boot options, last known good configuration really is something that can help you out quite a bit. Windows recovery environment, we saw some of those things. The command prompt probably going to be the most helpful part of that one. Repair myself works also. What point the boot failure occurred, and that's just a matter of watching it and the modularization of all of these things. It's just like when you put a machine back together, when did it start, what didn't work, what doesn't work on a computer, it's all modularized. The operating system becomes a similar circumstance. It's a process as we go through these things. Questions? Probably ready for a break, aren't you? Let's take a break.